right. Taking Africa and the world. Is it possible for SMEs to take Africa and the world? That's the conversation we're going to have. And I'm very privileged to have three fantastic panelists to just bring this conversation to us and tell us how, first, they've been able to take their businesses to the world. And secondly, whether we'll have a little conversation as to whether it is possible, actually possible, to take these businesses to the world and learning from them. Now, in my panel, I have three wonderful human beings. I have Navalayo Osembo, who is the CEO and founder of Enda, a made-in-Kenya running shoe brand that creates jobs, invests in local communities, and spurs economic development through exports. You must have seen this in some of the news because this shoe is getting a lot of good press. She is a graduate of the London School of Economics and has worked internationally, including in the US, in the UK, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Kenya, where she utilizes her diverse skills as an accountant, a lawyer, a risk manager, and an international developer. Prior to creating Enda, Navalayo started a sports academy in Bungoma, Western Kenya, to provide sports prodigies from disadvantaged backgrounds access to much-needed professional training without compromising their education. She is going to be alongside Alex Rurii and Philip from iPay, whom I'll introduce a little later. But I am so excited to have you, Navalayo, here because I'm a size 10 and I'm a great shoe ambassador. And, I'm just looking forward to that, that shoe box that you're going to send to me. I can't wait to have it. And so as you give your presentation about your business, I'm looking forward to you asking me about my address. Ladies and gentlemen, put together your hands for Miss Navalayo Osembo. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing me, and thanks to everyone who made time to be here. I always value time, so I appreciate when people take time to listen. So I would say thank you so much for the introduction. In terms of Enda, I'm assuming if you know Kiswahili, you know Enda means go, and we named the company Go because when you see how people support sports, especially when their team is just about to win or is doing something great, everybody will be shouting Enda, 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 and so when we were thinking of what's the perfect name to name this business, that's why we decided to name Enda. So at Enda, we basically work with Kenyan athletes to design and develop running shoes for runners around the world. The reason why we do this is multifold. One is the opportunity for Kenya to take part in the global footwear industry is massive. Like, it's one of the biggest industries, especially in footwear. That's performance running. But then we always come in from participatory and not an ownership perspective. So you'll find that a few athletes will win prize money. But then again, if you look at the pyramid of athletes, only a few are able to kind of stand out. There's still so many good athletes who are not able to get to that perspective. And then the other thing was also, growing up, my parents come from a place around Eldoret. And so it's been a place where I've been around, but never really taking it into consideration. But then you do grow up hearing stories about athletes who basically were making a lot of money and then they didn't make a lot of money, and towards the end of their careers they were destitute. And I think at some point I was like, why should it be that these global champions end up living destitute lives in an industry that is making a lot of money from them? So that was another motivation. And our final motivation was kind of studying international development. And I think I went there with so much naivety, trying to figure out, okay, so let's make this world work. And then I felt as though the Africa or Kenya that was being described was very different from the one that I had lived in. I think it made me question poverty. What is poverty? Is it material wealth? Is it good roads? Is it, there's elements where, yes, I didn't grow up with much, but I had a fantastic childhood. So who gets to decide that I have a negative story just based on how we grew up or the things we grew up with? And so coming out of studying international development and really thinking about how Africa was represented as this place with no hope, I was like, nah, that's not what I know. I know that we didn't have much, but we had a good childhood and we had a lot of stuff. So how can we basically take that narrative, and so that it's not someone telling me about, oh, you're so corrupt and you're all this and all that. And it's not to say we are not, but it's to say that there are parallel stories coexisting, one of which, yes, we have problems, so does everybody around the world, but on the other hand, we also have opportunities to showcase. So that's the mentality I basically came back home with after my postgraduate studies. And I was super determined to create something that was not only taking advantage of sports, but also creating a social impact. Social impact, as I said, is important for a couple of reasons. One, as I said, few athletes bear a lot of communal pressure to basically support everyone. And then there's also the element of appreciating history. The history of development has always been extractive, especially if you look at Africa and Kenya. It's always been, let's take resources, let's take them somewhere else, make them, bring them back, and basically sell them at a higher price. And so that hurts us as a country because it means we are a net importer. And that means, like, it has so many implications when you think about what that means when almost everything from the toothpicks to tissue paper is being imported. And so the social impact was, why not create an industry in Kenya? Because we do have the expertise, right? Like, we have the runners who from 1968 Olympics have been crushing it, but why not use their skills to create something? And so that was the decision to create Enda and try to establish making running shoes in Kenya. It hasn't been that much of an easy journey. I think when you start a business, you start with so much optimism of, I definitely want to do this. But we really quickly realized the challenges and the capacity and capital challenges that it takes to start a manufacturing entity in Kenya. And so one of them being capital. For you to start a factory, it takes a lot. And not only do you have the infrastructure, you have to think about the operational costs day to day. You have to pay people, you have to pay electricity, you have to pay all these things. And so as a result of that, we quickly realized we were not able to do it by ourselves. And hence, we decided to be contract manufacturers. So contract manufacturing is essentially working with an existing factory and basically using their downtime so that if they're able to produce extra capacity, they can be able to open the doors to other people who may not have those resources to start. And I think that has been so instrumental in making Enda happen. And I wish we could do that in other industries. So, for example, I don't need to own a tea factory to create a tea brand. I can basically create my own brand and work with the tea factory to produce for me. So I think that's the way to go. And so we've been contract manufacturing. And when we started, we were 0% made in Kenya because we quickly realized there's a reason why this industry didn't exist before. And so we had to do a lot of investments. That's at the factory level, at the staff training level. We basically had to do all that investment to bring people up to par so that when we put our shoes when you look at them on a wall, when you go to a running store, they would usually put the shoes on a wall. You want to say that the Enda running shoe is just as good as any other running shoe that is out there. And so that's what we've been doing progressively, investing, co-working with the factory to invest in machinery, to upskill the workers, and to make more and more of that process, bring it from Asia to Kenya so that we can make those shoes in Kenya. We still have a target of making the shoes 100%. We are on our way there, but very optimistic about the future. Right now, we have two products. One is called the 10, and the other one is called the Lavatet. So the 10 is a lightweight trainer. It's ideal for shorter runs. The Lavatet is for longer runs. And the key thing about our shoes is not just about a product you're wearing, it's also sharing Kenya's history and running culture. Because you realize when you ask someone in the streets, who are best runners, they'll probably tell you Eliud Kipchoge. You might get a David Rudisha, and then it's blank. And I think that's a huge travesty for a nation that has such a huge history. And that's why we take care and try to make sure that our shoes aren't just like the whole design philosophy has to pay tribute to running, to our history, and to make people feel good, which is essentially the way if you look at African history and oral literature, it was always about something that tells a message. And so we hope that our brand will not only be a running shoe brand, but it will also be a brand that reminds people about their history, their culture, makes them proud of where they come from, and also change the image of Kenya as not just a place where you get, people still believe stuff from Africa is not good quality, and we're here to challenge that and saying, who says, here's an equally good product, we can do it, we just need the opportunities and the resources. So that's a brief overview about Enda and what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Navalayo, for such an inspiring story, and thank you for what you're doing both for our country, for our country's narratives, and for our feet. And now I know why I don't own a pair of running shoes, because I only run from poverty. But we'll discuss that a little later. Stick around. We're going to have a discussion with you in a bit. But I'd like to invite Mr. Philip Nyamwaya, who is the CEO of iPay, to come and share a little about his business. Philip, please feel free to unmute yourself and go. Take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Amani, for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here in the Sandbox Big Baraza. My name is Philip Nyamwaya. I'm the managing director at iPay. iPay is a payment services provider. We are a local company, born and bred, fully Kenyan, fully African. And we offer SMEs, corporates, you name it, even the man on the street, really, the ability to be able to receive payments across different platforms, whether it's mobile money, mobile banking, Visa, MasterCard, credit and debit card acquiring, QR code acquiring, PDQ acquiring, using those PDQ machines. That's what we do. And we began our journey in 2010 as a product of a different technology company, but our board decided to separate the two companies in 2010. Actually, the journey began in 2007 with the advent of M-Pesa, and we began to ask ourselves then, what can we do with this technology? Because Africa is obviously not, we're not, how do you say it? We're not a card first or a bank first economy like you would find maybe in South Africa or in North Africa perhaps, or in Europe really. And we asked ourselves, what can we do? So we were already thinking about M-Pesa 2.0 at that time. And that being the case, incidentally, I was doing my master's around the same time. I have a master's in software engineering from the University of Liverpool. And my thesis was actually on mobile commerce and its effect in a third world context. How can we use mobile technology to actually leapfrog some of the technological milestones that maybe the West has gone through and whatnot. And so we came up with this technology. So the very first version was actually, something I'd used for an academic dissertation. And I'm happy that we were actually able to turn it into a product that is relevant to Africa, relevant to our context, and makes a lot of sense. So there is some solid work that has gone into our solution. And in 2010, we built it out and created it as a standalone product. That being the case, as Navalayo has mentioned, and I think everybody here can attest to the fact, entrepreneurship is not a walk in the park. It's tough. And I think just the added fact that we're in Africa makes it that much tougher, just makes it that much harder. But I think we being born and bred here, having lived in these broken economies that we have, there's still a silver lining. There's still something we can do. And why I say that is, even before I come to the rest of the company, I just wanted to just throw that out there. It's because so many of my friends live outside Kenya. Most of my friends, most of the people I grew up with, and I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I'm just as ordinary as Navalayo has mentioned. But I look at most of the people I grew up with from the estate, from the Mta, they're not here. They're either in America, they're in Europe, they're in Australia, they're in much more developed economies, contributing to those economies. It's not that they're just doing nothing or on the fringes of society, no. And I ask myself, when will Africa ever change? If we all go, not that we shouldn't, and I'm not saying don't take an opportunity, but, go to come back, go to bring the value here, because this is the last frontier. This is where I believe you can make it and really make it big with a lot of positive social impact that will raise up so many other people and so many other businesses together. And that's where wealth is created. So anyway, long story short, iPay was launched. We began our business. We began developing products, and right now we have a stable of products. We offer businesses the ability to collect payments both on the internet, online, or at the point of sale in your shops. That means that we are a one-stop shop. You come to us, we'll give you the ability to collect M-Pesa payments, Airtel Money, Equitel, EasyPay, Vuma from KCB, Visa, MasterCard, UnionPay, American Express, both online. Or if you don't have the ability to set up an online shop, we'll give you one. We have a platform where shops can actually, or businesses, hustles, can actually come and set up and create value for themselves without having to go through the entire process of setting up a website, and that whole rigmarole. So we take that pressure off you. We also have an invoicing solution. So that means if you want to bill your customers wherever they are in the world, and send them a branded invoice that comes from you, we are able to give you that technology to allow you to acquire payments in multiple currencies as well. We also offer merchants the ability to disburse payments. So it's not just about receiving payments, that's just one leg of the payments journey, but also, paying out, because businesses actually support other businesses. Either you are paying for wages, or you are paying, and these wages perhaps are going to mobile wallets or they're terminating to bank accounts. We will be able to support you with that kind of technology and to do so easily and quickly. Finally, I have quite a lot to talk about, and I think we'll do so maybe as we go along. But we are also directly connected at the PesaLink switch, and that means that we play at the same level with the banks. And that means that we're able to offer preferential rates in terms of settlement to banks. So PesaLink does up to 1 million less one. So we'll be happy to have conversations around that. We also have an exhibition booth, and we'll be more than excited to have further engagements with you. The rest of our team is there waiting to engage with you and would love to talk to you. Finally, lastly, just before I wind up, I just wanted to say one last thing. We have just launched a new product called iPay Kopesha, and it's a working capital solution. So that means if you come on board as an iPay merchant, we actually expose opportunities for you to access working capital, short-term lending, short-term loans. Is it for 10 days, 15 days, 30 days credit, some up to 6 months. We're able to offer you that in partnership with very strong partners that we work with. You just come to our dashboard and you're able to access a loan based on your turnover. How much are you trading through our systems? And that's something which we are excited about. I believe it will also help just unlock credit opportunities to African SMEs as we go along. Amani, I could go on until tomorrow, but I think I'll just cut it over there. Thank you.
Philip, such a passionate pitch about your business, and well done. Again, one of the businesses I've been privileged to see from scratch, and you've done very well. You've done very well with iPay. Guys, if you want to see, the guy, he said the truth. Just ordinary man, worked hard, over 17 years experience in the field of product development, financial services, technology, marketing, and business development. Of course, you can tell he has a good brain. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science with first-class honors, no less, from JKUAT. And he also has, as he mentioned, the master's degree in software engineering from the University of Liverpool. And if you didn't know that you are getting smart brains, now you know. And if, as a business, you need to get in touch with iPay, so go to the exhibition booth, get in touch with them. Thank you, Philip, for that. And stick around. We're going to be talking to you shortly in a bit as I introduce the next man. The next man is Mr. Alex Rurii. Now, Alex, again, privileged to have known him for a while and privileged to know what his business does. He runs Moran Capital. Moran Capital is, he'll be talking about it, but let me say something about Alex. He provides deep, meaningful, and practical insights into the challenges and strategies of developing a sustained culture of corporate and personal success across markets and across market timeframes, peppered investments, opportunities, and regional barriers. And I've heard him speak, and it brings this down to a level you and I can very easily understand. There's more than 2 decades of experience in developing successful wealth management strategies for individuals and for corporate clients in local and global markets. Basically, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. If you want to be wealthy, you need to talk to Alex. Alex. Take it away, man.
Thank you, Amani. Thank you very much. And yes, Alex Rurii, I'm the CEO of Moran Capital. And thankfully, we have been in the process of rebranding as well. Our clients and what their needs are. And we are responding in that way and have found a way to obviously do that. We are in the process of a rebrand from working with Sandbox and going into very rigorous research. So I'm glad to be here to share some of the things that we've observed over the last 2 decades or so. And just as an introduction, yes, I've been in the financial industry for the last 20 years, so decades I can count. But more importantly, serving successfully people who, we can say we have traction on that space of wealth management, because we have seen the change in families, we have change in businesses, and that for me is my greatest passion. You can change big numbers, but if it doesn't change individuals, then it's not as effective. So I'll just share some few slides just to take us through something that wow, okay, just a quick one. Maybe I will go into my screen here. And I will be talking about building your wealth, through building your business better, to build your wealth better. I truly hope, Amani, you can see my screen.
I can see your screen. Maybe you put it on presentation mode.
Yes,
at
I
the
will
bottom.
do that.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so really, your business is a key aspect of your own livelihood, as well as many people's livelihoods. And our advisory services towards individuals and corporates run around the wealth management space, the investment advisory, because there are some people who obviously don't want to delve too much into their personal space. They want just execution, as compared to us looking at where are your assets today and what are your goals and how do we bridge this gap. It's something that we can get into very intensely, very intimately, and come out with a very clear strategy. But in terms of smaller chunks developed over the process, you can do investment advisory. This is where can I place my investments. I got some retrenchment which has happened over COVID, a very unfortunate space. Where can I invest and be able to get some immediate income? Or my business has been impacted in terms of my core business. Where can I place investments to generate income to run my OPEX? My operational expenditure is a very critical space. Risk management is just looking at those things that I need to do to defend the asset that I'm developing. Private equity is how do I get into other businesses without me having to run and operate necessarily, but I can benefit from the growth of the business without it being purely debt. And private banking obviously is international exposure into very concierge spaces of getting premier banking services from a global perspective. So those are some of the services we provide, and these services can be provided from people who are starting, to people who are starting, corporates which are starting out, all the way to really conglomerate businesses. In my background, of course, I've come from the audit and financial services sector. I've done my master's in finance, worked for all these corporates. So we are able to handle, various rigor that, our clients can give. So primarily what you're doing as business, you're looking at how do you grow your personal net worth. And this is something that we've always looked at from a client perspective, and also ourselves as a business. We look at our active income, and that means our business and for our staff, the employment income, but also, the passive income they can receive. A lot of people are stuck on the active income where they are fully engaged in their own business, that they don't have a passive income such that if their business was hit by a shock like the pandemic has done, there's no way to have a fallback and their business will be dilapidated. It will be completely out of the market. And we've seen this quite a lot. And the question is, nobody had highlighted the fact that, this market cycles could wipe out wealth. So what should you do to protect your most important asset, which is your human capital? So to protect that human capital, to protect your business, you need some alternative source of income, which is your passive income, whether it is in real assets, your real estate and those kind of things, your paper assets, mutual funds, bonds, whether they're government or corporate, shares, alternative investments, derivatives. Who gives you information as to how to structure your portfolio so that you can have a regular income from these areas where you are not a professional necessarily, but you have somebody who's a professional and giving you, proper advice towards achieving your goals, but more importantly, towards growing your net worth, because at a start, you might start by leveraging off debt. But then even as you grow, your net worth is a matter of your assets less that debt which you have. So just checking what you owe other people and what is really yourself, that is your net worth, and that's a wealth that you can sit on and be happy to pass on to your next generation. So the question is, who is helping you do that? And we also analyze what is our own growth. And to do that, of course, we've looked at the African context for a long time. It's a large market. Of course, by 2030, and some of the statistics that we got from Joram support this information. 1.7 billion is, a respectable number, 16-20% of the world population in the next, 8, 9, 10 years. 40% of the natural resources of the world. I mean, you cannot ignore this fact. You have a young and growing population demographic. So when we are thinking of doing investments as a business and the people we should be advising for the future, because we are creating sustainability in our business the next 100 years, the next JP Morgans in this market, the next, big businesses in this continent. Where will this support come from? Of course, this is very important. 19 to 30 years population is 60% of our total population. We have a rapidly growing workforce due to the education, that one very well, sitting in Kenya, sitting anywhere. You now have a lot of people coming out of university. Where will they be engaged? Where will they invest? What kind of businesses will they get into? This is a space we need to be involved in to make sure that when we tap into this space, when we tap into this client group, then we can know the business will be carried over the next 100 years very easily, because the generations will have seen success and they want to hand over that success through companies that have taken them through very well. We also have this fastest urbanization rate in the world. Now, this is amazing because this is faster than China and India. And what that means is a lot of investment is coming into Africa. People can now access consumer data because the urbanization means people are coming closer to town, people have more information, and those companies structuring products and who want to access this consumer information now can get it. And therefore, you find Africa is very attractive. We have accelerating technological change. We've just had iPay talking about those kind of things that they are doing. And the fact that, if you look at M-Pesa and its success, Safaricom, it means there's a lot of things happening that will connect the whole of Africa and make business easier to do. Not to mention, obviously, that we have a trading bloc, which is CFTA, removing a lot of the barriers that we have previously been seeing. And for that, we were very attracted to this space. And for us, one of the key points was that we obviously looked at this data. And this on the right here, you can see some big numbers. But what does this mean? We are looking at, in a few years, we'll have at least 2 trillion, 3 trillion in assets, in GDP in Africa. Where is this money going? Because that is the question. Where is this money going? Is it going to end up with us, or who's going to end up with this money? Every year we are having this money come through the economy. Where is it going? It's going in these services and manufacturing spaces. But what are these people doing with the money? This was the question we were asking ourselves. Will we be left with this wealth? As you can see, there are guys in food and beverage making $850 billion every year. Where is this money going? If I ignore Africa, am I playing in that space? If I want to create wealth for my investors, am I in that space? So one of the steps we took, obviously, was to go into the bigger market, which is Nigeria. We've also played in East Africa. We are now looking at the rest of Sub-Saharan as well as the Central Africa region. And the reality is we have, from moving from East Africa to Western Africa, we've seen probably a 50 times growth because Nigeria is an enormous market. Obviously, we understood the challenges of that market. We understood the regulatory risks, instability. You could see if we go into that market, we need to open. These are guys who spend and do big things. So your distribution cost for investments and wealth advisory would be very high because the rental cost is very expensive in Nigeria. The political risks are there. You saw, last year there was a bit of push and shove. There's, a lot of issues. The roads, the traffic jam is amazing. The story of Africa. If you go to Lagos, the traffic jam it makes Nairobi look like a drop in the ocean. Electricity supply problems there, and therefore communication is a major challenge. There is a lot of problems going on there that we know. There is information gaps in terms of research that we can actually use. We are talking of multiple currencies. These are challenges everybody would see. We have the Naira, and if you are investing internationally, you have, to invest in dollar. There are exchange tariffs and, currency challenges to move money out of Nigeria into investment. So we have to think of these things. And most, Nigerians think of big brands. When you go to Congo, they think of big brands. And then you're coming from a space where we are now also dealing with fairly informal traders. We have issues around anti-money laundering. And those kind of things. So when people see Africa and you want to invest internationally, everybody is sensitive. Is this money legit? So all the banks want extra paperwork. The capital markets are not that developed to move money. Yes, they are big, but they are not yet developed to do the sophisticated things. And, for some of these markets, as you can hear, we are a Kenyan company dealing in Nigeria. Of course, by the time they buy our story that Kenya can hub financial services in Africa, a challenge. Where are you coming from? You're a small country. But, we looked at it in terms of what's our strategy. We've worked around digital footprint. We did a top-down, bottom-up strategy. And we did, in order to enter the market, we've worked digitally, created a hub and worked with partners to localize our business because, you can hear my English. If I try to speak any pidgin English, I will fail flat. So, it's a market which I may not be able to access very easily. But also from our regional strategy was to look at this is a consumption-driven economy. So whatever investments you give, have to have a very quick turnaround on investment. And we can speak a lot of things around how our company did the margin expansions and those kind of things that we really look at for businesses. And we help our clients to obviously work through that, as well as what technological support do you have on our digital wealth strategies and shared service centers to reduce cost on the business. Finally, of course, Sandbox has helped us with professional services and to help our sales strategies. So this has helped our business be able to access these markets very easily. And our strategies on how to get into those markets, reducing how much capital you invest upfront before you get to understand the market. There's a lot of strategies that we can share so that every one of our clients and also for ourselves entering these new markets, we are very clear that we have to have a strategy which is actually quite sustainable. So this has been the backbone of our success. And we hope that, over time, as clients come to us, as you come to us, we can share deeply and with a lot of insight as to how that can impact your own business and your own wealth. So thank you very much for listening on that.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you very much, Alex, for such a detailed presentation. And thank you. I mean, this guy, he does business, and he's able to break it down into simple business for us. I'd like to ask the rest of the panelists to come on board. I'll just ask you one question and then we can close this session. So Navalayo and Phil, if you'd come on board, thank you very much. This business is about, this session is about SMEs taking Africa and the world. And Alex has just started by, he's finished rather by explaining about his experience in getting into West Africa, how it has grown their business, but also the challenges that they've had. I want to ask you just one simple question, and both of you can jump in at any point, both Phil and Navalayo. What has been your biggest mental hurdle to scaling from Kenya to Africa?
That's actually a good question. I don't think I think of them as hurdles. I think when you said hurdle, my mind was like, I think I
always use a running analogy for you.
Yeah, I think it's more, I would say I see them as opportunities on the flip side. And I would say it's more of information. I would say the key thing is if you don't have access to information, that's like a thing that really limits you. And so when you're thinking of going to a specific market, I think most people would do a Google search and stuff like that. I found a very good support through the She Trades network. There's basically ITC, that's the International Trade Center, has a very good set of tools, trade tools. So there's a market access map, there's an export potential map, and market investment map. They sound very complex, but they are not. These tools are basically aggregating data from around the world. And let's say I want to sell goods to another country. You can literally, using the HS code, find which countries are importing a lot, which ones are not, which ones are things like that. So I would say that information is extremely critical if you're thinking about going to another country. And then I would also say another information source is the bilateral agreements between Kenya and other countries. So you want to go to a place where the government has essentially gone on your behalf and made trade easier. And so we have a lot of trade agreements with countries in Europe, with America. And so you also want to take advantage of those places because the work becomes significantly easier. Phil talked about payment processes systems, how you're going to get your money out of a specific country. So you also need information when you're looking at how to do that. And then essentially now you have to think, okay, how do I get into that market? I think the big challenge for most people has been looking at a market and saying, I need to find a buyer. And I felt like that is, it's a great thing if you have the connections and the information like buyers beforehand. However, if you're just still standing in your living room and you're thinking, how do I find a buyer in country X, which I've never been to, how do I get there? And so I would say the key thing that I have learned, and this is based on my personal experience, is that once you have used all those data sources to identify the market, you have to find a way to be in that market. Basically, provide your own market, because I felt as though waiting for a buyer or someone to contact you is like a sitting duck, whereas you can be more proactive and say, okay, if other business people are coming into Kenya, there must be a way for me as a Kenyan to go into that country. And so I found that as the best way to expand into a country, essentially looking at after, of course, looked at all that data, looking at where the biggest market is, and establishing an entity in that market. That way, you're not really sitting at the mercy of waiting for a buyer, but you have an entry access that gives you as good as a chance as anybody in that country is. So I'd say the biggest challenge is mental, in terms of not having the information and not understanding that sometimes you can't sit and wait for the buyer to come to you. You kind of have to go to that market figure out how to get into it, because then if there's all these kinds of rules before you open a bank account, the same rules we apply to foreigners here, same rules apply in another country. Figure out how to do that. And once you're able to set foot in one of your key markets, you're fair game. You can compete as much as anyone else can. So I say a lot of the challenges I've seen with small SMEs, but again, it's not really a blame. I think it's just a knowledge perspective where you are looking for a buyer. You're looking for a buyer, and I'm like, you can be the buyer, essentially connecting yourself to that market. You're mute.
I was saying thank you for that. We got an Index 1 answer, from you. And well done. Philip, what are your thoughts? What was your biggest barrier? And I don't know, we're running out of time, but I'll give you a minute to be able to respond to that.
Yes, indeed, we are on the clock here. I'll keep it short and succinct. Actually, what Alex said, I think I need to actually have a coffee with Alex after this, because I think there are so many notes we can exchange, especially with regards to country entry. Nigeria is actually one of the markets that we're actually attempting entry into. And it's what somebody told me, I don't know whether to congratulate you or to commiserate you, because that's a very, very crazy market. But I think for me, the issue is partnerships. In fact, my headline point was taken by Navalayo, and I think that's the biggest issue: access to information. How do other cultures operate? How do other markets operate? What are the do's and don'ts? Something that's normal and ordinary in Kenya may not be acceptable etiquette just across the border in Uganda or in Tanzania, or in Rwanda, Burundi, and those are markets which we actually have presence in. How do people do business here? What's the culture? Secondly, getting partnerships, getting the right people to work with. I think that for us has been a big hurdle. You can have all the bilateral agreements, you can have the right environment, but who are you going into business with? Because in some of these countries, the legislation necessitates that you must have a local partner. Some do. So those are factors that, where do you get these people? People with high ethics, high integrity, people who, don't want to cut corners, people with whom you will not disagree with in future. That's a big issue. And it's not just about rushing into a market. The other issue is capital. I would say capital not as a problem. I think that's what Alex is here to sort out. But the fact that many people think because I don't have capital, I can't go. So that's a mental blockage. One of the things that actually prompted us to go into Uganda was a very Kimchezo road trip I took with some of my friends earlier, even before we went into iPay in a previous company I was working with. We just went to visit a pal of ours who was doing medicine at Makerere. We slept in his room, but our eyes were open. We were in the environment, and you see the country dripping with opportunity for your product. And suddenly from there, the scales start falling off and you realize, actually, I can do this thing. So that's the other thing. The other thing also is about setup. I think Alex mentioned something about Nigeria. There you pay rent 1 year in advance. That's a fact of the matter, right? Mm-hmm. So there's some countries where it works like that. So the question is, what can you then do to set up easily? Can you go for a virtual office setup? And there are some of those opportunities there. You don't have to go the full brick and mortar. So the question is, how can you have an asymmetrical response to a problem that you're facing? And I really encourage entrepreneurs out there, go out of the Kenyan market. I think yesterday one of the panelists said that Kenya is a very small market. 50 million people is not big. Don't think you're big. Don't compare yourself to, the small economies. Compare yourself to the whole continent. You've got to look at your product in terms of scale. That's where wealth is created, in scale. It's good to have it, but it's scale. The last thing I would say, regulation and language. Please get legal advice. Get good, sound legal advice. The last thing you want is a tax problem in a foreign jurisdiction with a regulatory authority in that jurisdiction. Get sound legal advice from the get-go. SMEs, please pay for these services. Don't go in on the cheap. And when I say pay, I'm not necessarily saying, pay top dollar. Get good, qualified people who can help you. People who can help you with cross-border support. People like Alex, companies which are already leveraging continental environments to help you. Don't start from scratch. Don't reinvent the wheel. That's the mistake sometimes we make. Leverage other people's knowledge and expertise to move forward. But please, by all means, go, do. And I think there's some questions which are coming in the chat, Amani. Maybe we'll have time to also take them.
I think just once you get off, you can go ahead and engage with the guys on the chat. Alex, I'm going to just ask you to give a last word because we've run out of time. But I wouldn't want you to leave without having said everything else you wanted to say. So last word, and maybe the question is: should we go outside Kenya and do business and trade with Africa? Is it worth the risk?
All right. So. Yes, we should, but obviously with a lot of strategy. We have seen companies walk into some of the African markets, there's big promise, and then those risks we are talking about materialize. So, maybe there's some changes in policy, there's you are not very clear about, your investment horizon. You walked in without a very good strategy on how are you going to sustain in this market before your business is entrenched in the market and you see a profit. What lead time am I giving myself to be able to look at a payback period? A lot of people want in and out as fast as possible. And I understand everybody wants their return as quick as possible. But by the time you localize yourself, how long will that take? If you look at our friends in the beer industry, in Kenya, you call it Tusker. In Tanzania, you call it maybe Serengeti. In another market, they have really localized themselves so that they reduce the barriers to trying. I was happy to listen to Kandie Phyllis, and she was talking about possibilities of you creating djembes because we tend to import them from Brazil. But then if you went and called your djembe in Nigeria, you'll have a hard time. So you need to figure out how do you localize the word djembe in Nigeria, because there's a big market for those things, and we are all importing Tramontina and all these things from all over the place. So these are things to think about. If you are building your wealth, you've got to think of your 2, 5, 7, 10, 20-year time frame. Europeans typically play a 25-year game. Okay, so how do you see yourself playing a 25-year game in that market? So get in patiently and have a clear strategy, good partnerships, as we've mentioned. Go and check for, knock the doors of organizations that should support you. Let the embassy know you. Who's the commercial attaché? They need to know you. I see people investing in Kenya. One of the things we have to help with is they come in and did knock the door of people like Interpol or FRC, Financial Reporting Center of the Central Bank of Kenya. So you then send some $20 million here for you to start investing in a project. Now imagine you did this in another country. Nobody knew you. You plugged $20 million there. You have a heartache. So find out the processes, who should help you in governance and give you the right advice so that you're also not working with quacks and your resources are stuck. So those would be the things I observe. Yeah.
I just got a heartache from $20 million, just the mention, not even the process of it. I have to let you, ladies and gentlemen, go. Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you for your time. There's a lot of questions for you in the discussion tab. So please go ahead and engage with guys on that discussion tab. But guys, also these guys have booths. On your left side, you'll see an exhibition booth. iPay are there, Enda are there, Alex is there. Go and engage with them. There you'll be able to get their contacts there, and you'll be able to engage with them further. I'd also want to ask that if you're happy to share your presentations with us, put them, Alex, Philip, and Navalayo, if you have a document or handout you'd like to share with us, put it in the handout section so that guys can access. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best in your businesses. And Navalayo, I'm still in for that shoe. So, size 10. People are here saying that I cannot run. I run every day from poverty. So I leave the show for it. All right.
We encourage learning in all forms.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, cheers. All right, and for the rest of us who are still following on this wonderful conference, the Big Baraza, the hashtag is Big Baraza. You have to communicate, let people know what you're learning. Let's share these insights for other SMEs. We are going into another panel session.